real truth is those people are idiots.
Chris Evans just shattered the Disney illusion, and it might be the final nail in the coffin for the Avengers. What really happened behind the scenes wasn't heroic. It was heartbreaking. From grooming to manipulation, the truth about Disney is finally out. A bombshell revelation. In a stunning series of revelations, the beloved star of Captain America has broken rank, and what he's saying isn't just awkward for Disney. It's a damning indictment of how the Mouse House treats its most valuable players. You're about to hear what Disney does not want you to hear. And no, this isn't just about Chris leaving the MCU. This is about manipulation, about silencing, about identity, about what really happened behind closed doors during the final days of the Avengers, and how Chris Evans is only now, after years of silence, starting to speak out. The actor who once literally embodied the moral compass of Marvel now seems disillusioned, resentful, even betrayed. Because the truth is, Chris Evans didn't just walk away from Marvel, he escaped it. But here's the twist. Evans still loves Disney, or at least he wants to. That's what makes all of this so complicated. It's what makes the upcoming clips and quotes so shocking. How does someone who once called working with Disney a dream come true end up sounding like a man who's been burned? We're going to get into the tangled heartbreak of that story. But before we do, let's tease the fireworks ahead. Because the most shocking part of this interview that you're about to see is what Chris Evans admits about never wanting to put on the Captain America suit again. Not because he doesn't love the character, but because of what he says Marvel did to the experience. We'll also hear him describe, in his own words, a sense of corporate grooming, emotional exhaustion, and the anxiety he carried throughout his time in the Marvel machine. In fact, in one video clip, Evans outright says,
"I have been groomed and trained. You feel like the Manchurian candidate?"
Yes, you heard that right. Groomed and trained. That's not a phrase an actor drops lightly, especially not one who's describing the most profitable franchise in cinematic history. So, what happened? Let's rewind, because to understand why Chris Evans is now pulling back the curtain, we need to understand just how deep he was in it, and why that machine, that world, eventually pushed him away. At first, Evans didn't even want the part. Back in 2011, before he became Marvel's golden boy, he was just another actor terrified of losing his anonymity. And when Marvel came knocking, Evans was hesitant, almost terrified. In his own words,
"It's exactly what I did."
Did you really?
He goes on to explain that the top con wasn't the pressure. It wasn't the stunts. It was the lifestyle change. The idea that once you step into the suit, you can't step out. There's no off switch, he said. No off switch to the press, the interviews, the paparazzi, the feeling that you are no longer a man, but a brand. But then Disney made him an offer he couldn't ignore. A 6-picture contract, millions of dollars, global stardom, and the promise of becoming the face of the MCU. He eventually said yes, but what came next wasn't just success. It was indoctrination. I have been groomed and trained. That phrase keeps echoing for a reason. The Disney machine doesn't just cast its actors, it programs them. It curates their public image. It controls the narrative. And over time, it can break even the most principled people down. In another moment of vulnerability, Evans admits
That a lot of the fears that you had never really do come to fruition. And look, even if they do, you do have the opportunity every day to construct the reality in front of you.
this is a man who spent a decade learning how to survive inside a machine. A man whose identity became inseparable from his character. So when the curtain fell after Endgame, it wasn't just the end of a chapter. It was the start of an identity crisis, and Evans was not okay. You can see it in the way he talks about needing hobbies now, about feeling like acting became a job, not a joy, about losing pieces of himself to the role. He's even confessed that revisiting Captain America would feel like desecrating something precious.
It just would be scary to, rattle something that is, again, so dear to me.
He's not just being humble, he's being protective. And that raises a crucial question. Protective of what? His legacy? His mental health? Or is it about protecting himself from going back into that world? Because if you listen closely, Evans isn't nostalgic about his time as Captain America. He's conflicted, and the conflict comes down to this. What happens when you give a decade of your life to a company that sees you as both product and person, and then, when they're done with you, moves on? What happens when you build something beautiful, a character that millions love, only to watch that legacy get commodified, diluted, and used to sell theme park rides and corporate mergers? This is the dark side of Disney. And Evans, who grew up dreaming of being a Disney animator, who once gushed over his love for Mickey Mouse and Space Mountain, now seems caught between two truths. Disney was the dream, and Disney is the prison. Because let's not forget, this man isn't just Marvel royalty, he's a Disney fanatic. In one clip, he even says,
We grew up loving Disney to this day. That's my idea of
of heaven.
So why does he now sound like someone who's trying to escape that very paradise? What this reveals is a startling truth many fans, and even fellow actors, suspected for years. That being a Marvel hero meant signing away parts of your identity. That behind every red carpet smile, behind every scripted press appearance, was a contract not just for your labor, but for your entire self-image. And Evans isn't the only one hinting at this. Jeremy Renner, Hawkeye himself, once told Men's Health that filming Marvel projects felt like being owned by a corporation, and that he wasn't allowed to take certain roles during the height of his Avengers fame because Marvel had first right of refusal. Scarlett Johansson sued Disney in 2021 after they released Black Widow on streaming, costing her tens of millions in bonuses tied to box office performance. And while the lawsuit was settled, the message was clear. Even Marvel's biggest stars were dispensable when they got in the way of Disney's bottom line. But Chris Evans is doing something more dangerous. He's not fighting for money. He's not filing a lawsuit. He's just speaking. And what makes that so threatening, so explosive, is that he's doing it as someone who played by the rules, who smiled when asked, who made Disney billions. Now, he's walking away and talking. But if you think this is just about Chris Evans, you're missing the bigger picture, because his story is part of a disturbing pattern, one that Disney is desperately trying to bury under spin-offs and streaming content. A pattern of silencing, pressuring, and ultimately discarding the very people who made their empire possible. We're going to break down exactly how that happened, name names, and show you why the Avengers are officially done, not just in storyline, but behind the scenes. And it all starts with a leaked conversation, one that might explain why more actors are stepping away than ever before. Remember when Tom Holland admitted he was taking a full year off after The Crowded Room due to the mental toll of the role? He called the experience a bit of a tough time and emphasized the need for a break. Or when Elizabeth Olsen spoke out about being trapped by her Marvel obligations, saying she turned down projects she loved because she couldn't say yes, until Marvel cleared her for scheduling and character continuity. So when Chris Evans echoes those same feelings, he's not alone. He's part of a growing chorus of disillusionment, and that chorus is getting louder. But what exactly is Disney doing that's pushing their biggest stars to the brink? Let's break it down. 1. The identity stranglehold. Disney's contracts go far beyond performance. They dictate appearances, public statements, and sometimes even relationships. Not formally, of course, but through the culture of image preservation. In Evans' case, he once admitted in a 2019 Men's Journal interview that playing Captain America made him feel like he couldn't grow or express himself freely because of what the character represented. "I didn't feel like I could make mistakes," a line that speaks volumes about the pressure to maintain a clean image. 2. The career cage. Marvel actors are often locked into contracts that restrict creative exploration. Imagine being told you can't accept roles that conflict with your superhero persona, not because of time, but because of brand optics. Jeremy Renner once joked that he couldn't take gritty roles because Hawkeye can't be caught in a strip club, a nod to the unspoken rules of the Marvel PR machine. Actors have spoken out about these unofficial but very real limitations. 3. Emotional exhaustion. 10 years in a costume, repeating the same beats, locked into the same tone. It wears you down. Chris Evans described it as hamster wheel energy. He didn't say he hated Marvel, but he did say he felt like he was no longer in control. And here's the terrifying part. Most actors can't even speak out about it until they've left. Which brings us back to the big question. Are the Avengers done? Yes, not because Marvel says so, but because the people who made it special are walking away. Silently, sadly, burnt out. Evans, Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Zoe Saldana, even Dave Bautista. They're all retreating. And not because of money or script quality. It's the machine. And Disney, they're scrambling. Reboots, spin-offs, TV shows, new faces, new multiverse doors, anything to keep the illusion alive. But the truth, you can't fake heart. You can't CGI chemistry. And the core Avengers cast, the ones we watched grow, bleed, cry, and die, they're telling us, in subtle but devastating ways, it's over. The epic controversies. This is where we uncover the political and cultural conflict that drove Chris Evans away from Disney for good. Because while many actors fade away quietly, Evans lit a match on the way out. And the moment that caught everyone's attention, his unfiltered defense of Lightyear, a Disney Pixar film that ignited an entire political firestorm over a same-gender kiss. And how did Evans respond to the conservative backlash?
The real truth is those people are idiots. Those people die off like dinosaurs.
Refurbish your idea of tradition.
That's not just a bold quote, that's scorched earth. Evans, who had once been the clean-cut, all-American face of Disney, had just drawn a line in the sand, and the studio, it didn't stand beside him. In fact, after that comment, something eerily strategic seemed to happen. Chris Evans wasn't fired, he wasn't smeared, he was sidelined, silently. No big announcements, no follow-up projects, no promotion. It was as if Disney, the company that had once plastered his face across every continent, was trying to quietly distance itself from its own golden boy. Even fans noticed. It's like they scrubbed him out of the MCU the second he grew a backbone. Actual Reddit thread, June 2022. But let's rewind a bit. When Lightyear was first announced, Evans was thrilled. As someone who had adored Disney and Pixar since childhood, it felt like coming full circle. And he took the job without hesitation.
I don't care what it is. Doesn't matter. I'm doing it.
It wasn't just a voice gig. It was a passion project, a dream fulfilled. But Disney didn't protect that dream when the backlash came. Instead, they stayed silent, letting Evans take the heat alone, and it changed him. In later interviews, Evans no longer sounds like a man in awe of Disney. He sounds like someone who's been let down, someone who believed in the magic, only to find it was mostly marketing. This wasn't the first time Evans stuck his neck out either. He had long been vocal about politics, equality, mental health, and even corporate greed, but every time he spoke up, it chipped away at the carefully curated Captain America image. Eventually, it became clear Disney didn't want Chris Evans the activist. They wanted Chris Evans the icon, so they froze him out. Instead of elevating him during the Lightyear press tour, they buried the movie, cut marketing, and replaced him with other MCU faces in promotional material. It worked. Lightyear bombed, and Evans, already exhausted from a decade of intense press cycles, took the hit. That one broke him, said a Disney insider, speaking anonymously in 2023. He gave everything to that movie, and they left him alone on the front lines. That quote was never confirmed, but you don't need official statements to see what's happening. Just watch how he speaks now. The passion is still there, but it's been muted, not by failure, but by betrayal. Evans's entire Disney experience was built on the idea of making things better, of showing kids what heroism looked like, of stepping into a system that promised purpose. But behind the curtain, it was about control. Even when Evans fought to keep his favorite stealth suit in the Avengers sequels, he was overruled.
I keep trying to bring it back, but Marvel really liked the red, a little more of a purist.
That might sound like a wardrobe debate, but it was symbolic. Even when it came to what he wore, Evans didn't have real say, and the longer he stayed, the more hollow it all felt. In one heartbreaking moment, he talked about how much he struggled emotionally during his last days on set.
Getting emotional on the last day of filming. It was surprisingly emotional.
This wasn't just the end of a character. It was the end of Chris Evans as a Disney product. And when asked if he would return,
It just would be scary to, rattle something that is, again, so dear to me. It would have to be perfect.
he wasn't talking about the script. He was talking about the system, the culture, the company. Because after Lightyear, after Endgame, after a decade of selling his soul for something he believed in, Evans finally realized the thing he loved had outgrown him, and it didn't love him back. So where does this leave us? If you thought Chris Evans stepping away was just a personal choice, think again. Because as we dig deeper into the Marvel machine, what starts as a story about one actor's disillusionment suddenly turns into a chilling web of control, retaliation, and whispered warnings. And at the center of it all, a media empire that demands loyalty and punishes dissent. Let's talk about the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit. On the surface, it was about money. When Black Widow was released simultaneously in theaters and on Disney+, Scarlett's back-end bonuses evaporated. So she sued. Simple? Far from it. Because what followed was a scorched earth PR campaign unlike anything we've seen from a studio against its own star. Disney didn't just dispute her numbers. They tried to publicly shame her. In their official response, they stated, "The lawsuit is especially sad and distressing in its callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic." Translation: You're greedy for asking what we owe you. That's not just corporate defensiveness, that's character assassination. From the same company that used her face to sell lunchboxes and Halloween costumes for a decade. And what did other actors do when this happened? Nothing, not publicly. Because the message from Disney was clear. Speak out and we will make you look like the villain. This is the same company that, by its own admission, values brand image over transparency. In the wake of Johansson's lawsuit, Disney's board doubled down on CEO Bob Chapek's leadership, praising his bold vision for streaming, while quietly settling with Johansson months later for a reported $40 million. No apology, no admission of fault, just a payout to make the noise stop. But here's where things get even darker. We now know that internal Disney memos were circulated during this time, instructing Marvel division heads and PR officers to minimize amplification of Johansson's claims. One insider, speaking to Puck News, said, "There was a concerted effort not just to downplay Scarlett's complaint, but to freeze others from supporting her. Freeze others. That's not just about a lawsuit. That's about controlling the culture of truth, about using fear, not contracts, to keep actors compliant." It worked. Chris Hemsworth, silent. Jeremy Renner, silent. Even Evans and Downey Jr., both of whom had finished their arcs, said nothing publicly. Why? Because they knew exactly what Disney was capable of. Let's not forget, this is the same company that once tried to claim legal ownership of a deceased actor's likeness and voice to reuse in digital form, like they did with Peter Cushing in Rogue One, and planned to do with AI actors actors in the future. If they can recreate you, they can replace you. And this brings us to the leaked memo. In early 2024, a redacted portion of an internal strategy document from Disney's Investor Relations Office was posted anonymously on Reddit and later verified in parts by The Wrap. One bullet point stood out: legacy cast engagement is no longer considered a priority. Emotional ties to previous actors may undermine narrative flexibility and brand transition strategy. Let that sink in. The stars who built the MCU, now seen as liabilities. Emotional deadweight: Evans, Johansson, Downey Jr., better off gone. Easier to control the story without them. Easier to sell multiverse replacements and younger avatars without having to answer real questions. More drama. Chris Evans, the Disney prince, the Marvel patriot, the man behind the shield, is gone. Not dead, not canceled, not bitter, but gone. Gone from the spotlight. Gone from Disney's inner circle. Gone from the system that once told him, "You were born to wear the stars and stripes." And what remains is a sobering reminder for every fan who ever believed in the magic. Even heroes can become hostages. Chris Evans did everything right. He showed up, he played the game, he endured the press junkets, the six-picture contracts, the exhausting fan conventions, the training, the PR obedience. He even helped pass the shield to the next generation, literally.
He was so happy, and I got to watch him read the scenes. It was a great moment.
That scene, the one where Steve Rogers passes the shield to Sam Wilson, was meant to be the ultimate handoff, the symbolic retirement of Chris Evans. But what if it was something more? What if it was Chris Evans saying goodbye not just to the role, but to the entire machine? Because in the years since, while Disney has churned out spin-offs, sequels, and soft reboots, Chris Evans has stayed quiet, not just publicly, but professionally. He could have done another Marvel film. He could have returned as Johnny Storm. He could have stepped into the multiverse like everyone else. But instead, he walked away. He married in private, moved between homes in Massachusetts and Portugal, spoke about wanting to direct again, and confessed that his future is not in red, white, and blue, but in quiet. When your hobby becomes your job, there's a void, he said in a 2023 People interview. He started looking for new hobbies. He spoke about wanting to learn drums, try painting, do yoga, and maybe, just maybe, do a musical someday. You only get so many bites at that apple, he said. If I'm going to do it, it's got to be the right thing.
I'm waiting to do a musical. I want to sing,
manifest that, man.
dance, because that's something you gotta do, buddy.
He wasn't talking about career strategy anymore. He was talking about freedom, because that's what Disney took from him. For 10 years, Chris Evans was expected to smile, salute, and say, "Avengers assemble" on cue. He was expected to absorb the noise, wear the mask, and play nice with the mouse. And he did. But now, he's rewriting his own story. And not for a studio, for himself. Let's be clear. This isn't about hating Disney. Evans has said over and over that he still loves the world he helped build, that he's grateful, that he's lucky, and he is. But that gratitude is complicated, and for good reason. This is the same company that censored LGBTQ+ content in foreign markets, edited or erased diverse characters to appease certain governments, took forever to acknowledge its role in cultural erasure, claimed progressivism, but acted like a corporation first, always. So when Evans stepped forward to defend representation, the silence from Disney was deafening, and that silence speaks volumes, because this isn't just about Lightyear or Endgame or a dusty shield. This is about a pattern, a culture that turns real people into perfect products until they speak out, until they make a mistake, until they grow, until they no longer fit the brand. Just like that, the same machine that made you moves on without you. And that's what happened to Chris Evans. The Avengers didn't just end when Iron Man died or Cap grew old. They ended when the humans behind them got tired. Tired of being reshaped. Tired of being marketed. Tired of pretending. Evans has since said he'd consider returning, if the project was perfect. But let's be real. Perfection doesn't exist in Hollywood, and certainly not in a post-Phase 4 Disney, scrambling for cultural relevance. So don't count on seeing Steve Rogers again, because Chris Evans is no longer interested in pretending to be a symbol. He's done with speeches. He's done with the suit. He's done with the script. And maybe, just maybe, he's finally writing his own. However, what happened to Chris Evans is not unique. It's the same story that plays out again and again in Hollywood. A rising star steps into a dream and wakes up in a prison of contracts, clauses, and commodification. They get told, "You represent something bigger than yourself," but that something bigger is always a logo, a stock price, a brand guideline. And when you no longer serve that brand, they replace you. They replaced Iron Man. They replaced Black Widow. They replaced Captain America. And eventually, they'll replace every single one of them again. Because to Disney, the characters matter more than the creators. But to us, to the fans who saw ourselves in Steve Rogers, in his integrity, his inner struggle, his compassion, we'll always remember the man behind the mask, the real man, the man who finally chose himself over the machine. If they could do this to Chris Evans, what chance does anyone have? What happens happens when even the most bankable, loyal, fan-loved hero is tossed aside the moment he becomes difficult? What happens when a corporation that claims to champion magic decides you're no longer useful to the narrative? You get silence, you get distance, you get erasure, just like Evans did. And that's why this isn't just about one actor. It's about a system, a culture, a machine that eats people up and spits out characters. Polished, market-tested, profitable. Chris Evans didn't walk away from Disney. He broke free. If you love this video, then click on the cards showing on your screen for more videos like this.
Yeah.
It's almost terrifying to think about these being done.
Chris Evans has just opened up about something going on at Disney, and honestly, it's got people worried. For a while now, there have been whispers about drama unfolding behind the scenes, things never meant for the public eye. But hearing it from one of the studio's biggest stars, that hits different. So what exactly is going on? Chris Evans drops a bombshell about Disney. The world of Disney has been no stranger to controversies, particularly when it comes to the 2022 Pixar film Lightyear. At the center of this storm stands Chris Evans, who voiced the titular character in what was meant to be the origin story of the beloved Space Ranger. The film was positioned as the movie that inspired the toy in the Toy Story universe, an interesting meta concept that added layers to the Pixar mythology. However, when Lightyear hit theaters in June 2022, it sparked immediate and intense backlash, primarily due to the inclusion of a brief same-sex kiss between two female characters. This scene, lasting only about 10 seconds and appearing in a montage sequence depicting the life of Hawthorne, voiced by Uzo Aduba, and her wife, caused the film to be banned in 14 countries, including the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and other nations in the Middle East and Asia, where homosexuality is often criminalized or heavily restricted under local media content standards and cultural norms. The international censorship of Lightyear highlighted the ongoing challenges of global film distribution, particularly for content that pushes boundaries on social issues or includes LGBTQ+ representation. Producer Galen Sussman told AFP that the team was warned of potential bans but chose not to alter the film, stating, "We weren't going to change the film we wanted to make just because of some countries with, for lack of a better term, backward beliefs." This stance reflected a growing willingness among some filmmakers and studios to prioritize inclusive storytelling over maximizing global box office potential, a complex business decision with significant cultural implications. Evans made headlines when he boldly addressed this controversy head-on. In an interview with Reuters that quickly went viral, he didn't mince words about those criticizing the film's LGBTQ+ representation, stating, "The real truth is those people are idiots." The actor's unfiltered response was remarkable for its directness, especially coming from the star of a Disney Pixar family film. Most actors promoting such projects tend to respond to controversies with carefully worded diplomatic statements, but Evans chose a more confrontational approach that aligned with his personal values, while potentially risking alienating certain audience segments. The actor went on to elaborate on his position regarding social progress, framing the issue as part of a broader historical pattern of societal advancement.
I mean, I think throughout history you can see every time there's been social advancement as we wake up. I mean, the American story, the human story is one of constant social awakening and growth, and that's what makes us good.
This framing situated the Lightyear controversy within a larger narrative of American and human progress, suggesting that resistance to diverse representation is not only wrong-headed, but part of a historical pattern that ultimately gives way to greater inclusivity. Evans's choice to contextualize the film's representation in these sweeping historical terms elevated the discussion beyond a single scene in an animated movie, connecting it to fundamental questions about social evolution and progress. What's particularly interesting about Evans's stance is how firmly he planted his flag in support of inclusion, even as Disney was navigating its own internal controversies regarding LGBTQ+ content. Before the film's release, the same-sex kiss scene was initially cut from Lightyear, but was later restored following protests from Pixar staff. This internal conflict at Disney Pixar was part of a broader protest against Disney's response to Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, officially the Parental Rights in Education bill, which restricts discussions of sexual orientation and gender identity in primary school classrooms. In March 2022, LGBTQ employees and allies at Pixar sent a joint statement to Disney leadership, claiming that Disney executives had censored overtly gay affection in films, highlighting years of thwarted efforts to include LGBTQ+ identity in their projects. The statement detailed specific examples, including the removal of a rainbow sticker from Soul 2020 and same-sex couples from various backgrounds in films, illustrating the tension between creative desires desires for representation and corporate concerns about market reception. Evans continued his criticism of those opposing the film's representation, predicting their eventual irrelevance in increasingly stark terms.
And, when that happens, there's always going to be people who are afraid and unaware and trying to hold on to what was before. But those people die off like dinosaurs. And so, I think the goal is to pay them no mind, march forward, and embrace the growth that makes us human.
The dinosaurs metaphor was particularly pointed, comparing critics of inclusive representation to extinct creatures unable to adapt to a changing world. This vivid language underscored Evans's conviction that opposition to diversity and representation represents not just a difference of opinion, but a fundamentally outdated worldview destined for extinction. Such rhetoric, while galvanizing for those who share his perspective, undoubtedly intensified the polarized reaction to both the film and Evans' comments. The actor's co-star in the interview echoed these sentiments with their own powerful statement, urging critics to re-examine their perspectives through the lens of the film's famous catchphrase.
I would say to those people, just like with Buzz, refurbish your idea of tradition. Understand that it's to infinity and beyond. It's time to move forward. It's time to accept and look and enjoy all the faces that have always been there. They always been a part of the picture. You just try to paint them out. So that's also what this is about. It's about this is what it looks like. This is what it's always been, and to infinity and beyond.
This creative incorporation of Buzz Lightyear's signature phrase, "to infinity and beyond," transformed it from a space exploration metaphor into a call for social progress, cleverly linking the film's theme of pushing boundaries with the real-world push for greater inclusivity and representation. The controversy surrounding Lightyear didn't end with its representation issues. There was also significant discussion about the casting of Chris Evans instead of Tim Allen, who had voiced Buzz Lightyear in all 4 Toy Story films. This decision led to fan disappointment and speculation about whether Allen had been passed over for political reasons, given his conservative views and public support for Donald Trump. Some fans and media outlets theorized that Allen's absence was due to his political stance, noting incidents like a 2013 controversy involving racial slurs, adding another layer of political tension to the film's reception. Evans addressed this casting controversy directly, explaining in interviews that Lightyear depicted the human character who inspired the toy, not the toy itself, which justified the different voice casting. In an interview with Jimmy Kimmel, he further clarified the premise of the film, describing his initial confusion and the explanation he received from director Angus MacLane.
So, listen, I'm a massive Pixar fan, and when my team first called me to tell me that this was a possibility, when you get a call...
Which team, the Celtics, you mean?
Sorry, God, that was like the most Hollywood thing. When my team called, my agents.
Yeah.
And when everybody's on the call, it's either good news or really bad.
Oh, right.
Evans went on to explain the concept behind the film, revealing how the director's childhood fascination with Star Wars informed the creative vision for Lightyear.
And I went up and I met with them, and Angus, the director, had a PowerPoint presentation, and it began by him saying, so when I was a kid, I loved Star Wars. And quick, the first slide was, 5-year-old Angus covered in Han Solo gear, and he said it was just his whole world. He had all the toys, and his friends loved it. And he said that when he first saw the first Toy Story, and when Andy got Buzz Lightyear and all his friends knew who Buzz was, he wondered what was the movie in their world that they saw that made Buzz such an iconic...
This explanation positioned Lightyear as a meta-narrative within the Pixar universe, the fictional movie that existed within the world of Toy Story that inspired the Buzz Lightyear toy line. This creative concept sought to justify both the visual differences between the animated human Buzz and the toy Buzz, as well as the voice casting change from Allen to Evans. Tim Allen himself weighed in on the controversy in an interview with Extra, commenting on the lack of connection between Lightyear and his portrayal of the character. "It's a wonderful story, it just doesn't seem to have any connection to the toy. It's a little, I don't know, it just has no relationship to Buzz. It's just no connection. I wish there was a better connection." Allen's remarks, while not directly critical, suggested a disappointment with how the character had been reimagined, adding fuel to the existing controversy about his absence from the project. Despite the explanations offered by Evans and the creative team, the casting controversy added another layer of political tension to the film's reception. Some conservative commentators and fans saw Allen's absence as part of a pattern of Hollywood sidelining performers with right-leaning views, while others accepted the creative explanation at face value. This division reflected the increasingly polarized nature of media reception in contemporary American culture, where casting decisions and creative choices are often interpreted through political lenses. Despite the controversies, or perhaps partly because of them, Lightyear underperformed significantly at the box office. Reports indicate that the film lost Disney a substantial $106 million, with a production cost of $373 million, including marketing and distribution, and global box office earnings of only $26.4 million. This financial disappointment led to further criticism and analysis, with some attributing the failure to the film's perceived woke agenda, and others pointing to factors like the confusing premise, the absence of Tim Allen, or simply the quality of the film itself. Conservative backlash against the film was significant and vocal. Representative Jim Jordan expressed his views on Twitter with the succinct critique, "Buzz Lightyear went woke, the movie went broke," encapsulating the go woke, go broke sentiment that has become a common refrain among critics of progressive content in entertainment. Right-wing podcast host Ben Shapiro elaborated on this position on social media, claiming that Disney has a not at all secret gay agenda and encouraging parents to consider this before taking their children to see Lightyear. He included a screenshot of the lesbian couple from the film to emphasize his point, drawing attention specifically to the representation that Evans had defended as a natural part of human progress. The backlash extended beyond social media commentary to concrete actions. A school in Ontario, Canada canceled a planned field trip to see the film, and a theater in Oklahoma announced its intention to fast forward through the kiss scene during screenings. These responses demonstrated how the brief scene had become a flashpoint for broader cultural tensions about representation in children's media and parental control over the content their children consume. The controversy around Lightyear continues to be a point of discussion even in 2025, with recent social media posts still referencing it alongside other Disney projects as examples of woke flops. In April 2025, user at BigPoppage68 commented on X, "But at Disney is bleeding money from woke flops like Buzz Lightyear and the Snow White remake. We should quit pretending it's not a problem." This suggests that the film's legacy and the discussions it sparked about representation in media continue to resonate in cultural conversations years after its release, becoming part of a larger narrative about Disney's creative direction and its commercial consequences. Not all reactions to the controversy were negative, however. Some commentators mockingly criticized the intensity of the backlash, drawing parallels to other cultural flashpoints. In April 2025, user at Sammy Wrestlin noted on X, "They literally couldn't sleep at night because a mermaid was black. They stormed a capitol. They never admitted defeat. They also almost killed everyone in their way when there was two women kissing in the Lightyear movie. Their snowflakery knows no bounds." This satirical take characterized the backlash as disproportionate and politically motivated, connecting it to other instances of conservative outrage over diverse casting and representation. At this point, it's clear that Evans's stance placed him squarely on one side of a cultural debate that extends far beyond a single animated film. His willingness to call critics idiots and predict their extinction like dinosaurs demonstrated a level of conviction that set him apart from the more measured corporate responses typical of Disney-affiliated talent. Whether this bold stance has affected his relationship with the entertainment giant remains to be seen, but it certainly cemented his reputation as an advocate for progressive values in an increasingly polarized media landscape. Disney scandals rock the entertainment world. While Chris Evans' comments about Lightyear critics generated significant buzz, they represent just one facet of Disney's recent controversies. The entertainment giant has been navigating a sea of scandals that extend far beyond the casting and content choices of a single Pixar film. One of the most alarming recent incidents occurred in early 2025, when former Disney employee Michael Schur was sentenced to 3 years in prison for hacking into the park's menu system after being fired in 2024. This wasn't just digital vandalism, it was a potentially dangerous breach with real-world safety implications. Between July and September 2024, Schur repeatedly hacked into Disney's menu creation software, making various malicious alterations, including changing allergen information, falsely indicating that some items containing peanuts were peanut-free. This could have had life-threatening consequences for visitors with severe allergies had Disney not caught and removed the altered menus before they reached park restaurants. The extent of Schur's digital sabotage was comprehensive. In addition to the allergen misinformation, he he changed menu prices, added profane language, disabled employee accounts, and altered QR codes to link to a website advocating a boycott of Israel-related businesses. The incident disrupted operations for 2 weeks, requiring manual processes and backups, and cost Disney at least $150,000 in immediate damages. Scheuer initially denied wrongdoing, claiming Disney was framing him and citing a mental health disability, but he eventually pleaded guilty to computer fraud and aggravated identity theft. In April 2025, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution of approximately $690,000. This incident highlights significant cybersecurity vulnerabilities at one of the world's most visited theme park destinations, raising questions about Disney's digital infrastructure and employee management practices. The case also illustrates the growing intersection of cybersecurity and physical safety in our increasingly digital world. Another ongoing controversy plaguing Disney parks involves the exploitation of the Disability Access Service, DAS, designed to assist guests with disabilities who cannot wait in traditional lines. Reports from May 2025 indicate that some guests are hiring disabled individuals to accompany them and use DAS passes to skip lines, a practice costing approximately $100 for priority access. The practice involves able-bodied guests effectively renting the services of someone with a disability solely to gain preferential treatment in attraction queues. This exploitation not only undermines the purpose of the DAS system, but also commodifies disability in a troubling way. This is not the first time Disney has grappled with such abuse. Similar practices were documented in the early 2010s, leading Disney to replace the guest assistance card with the more structured DAS in 2013. In response to continued exploitation, Disney updated the DAS program again in 2024, narrowing eligibility to focus primarily on developmental disabilities like autism, requiring virtual interviews up to 30 days in advance, and limiting group sizes. However, these policy changes have themselves become controversial. A class action lawsuit filed in February 2025 alleges that the new policies discriminate against guests with physical disabilities, violating their rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act and California's Unruh Civil Rights Act. The lawsuit seeks changes to eligibility criteria and damages of at least $4,000 per violation, arguing that the current implementation forces public disclosure of medical information, constituting a privacy breach. Public reaction to the exploitation of the DAS system has been strongly negative. On forums like mumsnet.com, commenters called the hiring practice deceitful and profoundly depressing, with one person noting, "As someone with a disability who now has to jump through ridiculous hoops in Florida, people like your husband are the reason getting the pass I've legitimately used for years is now near impossible." Disney has defended its policies, stating that the claims in the lawsuit are without merit. The company adjusted the wording of its DAS eligibility descriptions in January 2025, removing the word "only" from certain criteria, possibly in response to legal pressures. Beyond operational issues at the parks, Disney has also faced broader controversies related to cultural and political debates. The company's response to Florida's Don't Say Gay bill in 2022 exemplifies this challenge. Disney's initial silence on the legislation led to staff walkouts and public criticism. LGBTQ employees and allies at Pixar alleged that Disney executives had actively censored overtly gay affection in their films. When Disney eventually opposed the bill after significant pressure, promising $5 million to LGBTQ+ charities and halting political donations in Florida, it faced backlash from conservative stakeholders and politicians. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis responded by targeting Disney's special self-governing status in the Reedy Creek Improvement District, escalating what had been a cultural disagreement into a legal and legislative battle. The controversies surrounding Lightyear are part of a longer history at Pixar and Disney regarding LGBTQ+ representation. Over Pixar's 27-year history, few films have included unambiguous LGBTQ+ characters, with examples like a one-eyed cop mentioning a girlfriend in Onward 2020, and two moms hugging a child in Toy Story 4 Inches 2019. This pattern suggests an ongoing tension between creative desires for inclusive storytelling and business concerns about market reception. The conservative backlash against Disney's perceived woke agenda extends beyond Lightyear. Recent social media comments continue to frame Disney's creative choices in political terms. For instance, the casting decisions for the live-action Snow White remake sparked heated debates in March 2025, illustrating how Disney properties have become battlegrounds in broader cultural wars about representation. In March 2025, another incident added to Disney's challenges when a fire broke out in a walk-in cooler backstage at Epcot's France Pavilion, leading to the evacuation of Remy's Ratatouille adventure. Just days later, a Florida man was arrested for attempting to bring cocaine train into Magic Kingdom, generating headlines that associated Disney World with illegal drug activity. As Disney navigates these multifaceted scandals, it faces the challenge of maintaining its identity as a family-friendly entertainment provider while addressing the increasingly diverse and sometimes conflicting expectations of its global audience. The controversies reveal a company at the intersection of changing social norms, technological vulnerabilities, and polarized political environments. Future plans leave fans wondering what next. As controversies continue to swirl around Disney, fans and industry insiders alike are curious about Chris Evans' future with the entertainment giant. Having portrayed both Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Buzz Lightyear in Pixar's Lightyear, Evans has been a significant presence in two major Disney franchises. However, his path forward with the company appears less certain than his past success might suggest. Speculation about Evans returning to the MCU as Captain America has been persistent since his character's emotional send-off in Avengers Endgame 2019. However, recent statements from the actor have consistently denied these rumors. In a January 2025 interview with People magazine, Evans firmly shut down reports of his return for Avengers Doomsday, stating simply, "That's not true," and noting that similar rumors resurface every few years since Endgame. This sentiment was echoed in an Esquire interview where he quipped, "Yeah, no, happily retired," when asked about reprising his role. Anthony Mackie, who has taken up the mantle of Captain America, confirmed in the same piece that Evans had not discussed returning, adding, "I talked to Chris a few weeks ago and it wasn't on the table then." These recent denials stand in contrast to earlier rumors from outlets like Collider in January 2021, which had suggested negotiations for at least one Marvel project, but these have not materialized into confirmed roles. The persistence of these rumors, despite clear denials, highlights the challenge actors face in controlling the narrative around their careers, particularly when attached to beloved franchise characters. Understanding Evans's original journey to becoming Captain America provides interesting context for his current stance. When asked how he got cast in the iconic role, Evans described it as a process filled with uncertainty.
Luck. They wanted me to come in and read, and I was a little apprehensive. It was a back and forth. It was a little bit of a dance. It was something I was really nervous about doing.
He credits the support of Marvel executives and colleagues for helping him take the leap.
Luckily, there were really good people in my corner. They kept nudging me. Kevin Feige, Robert, and a lot of great people kind of talked me into it, and the best decision of my life.
This initial hesitation, followed by the career-defining success of his tenure as Captain America, may inform his current reluctance to return to the role. Having completed a satisfying character arc and moved on to other projects, Evans may be wary of diminishing the impact of Steve Rogers' farewell by returning for additional appearances. While the MCU door appears closed for now, another potential avenue for Evans' future with Disney lies in the Star Wars franchise. An ex-post from September 2019 shows Evans' interest in joining the galaxy far, far away, as he simply responded "me" to a query about MCU actors in Star Wars. Reports from Giant Freakin' Robot in June 2024, citing insider Daniel Richtman, indicated Disney had informal talks with Evans for an upcoming Star Wars project, likely a theatrical film under Kevin Feige's development. This potential Star Wars connection makes sense given Evans's previous collaboration with Rian Johnson, director of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, on the hit film Knives Out. Earlier reports, like one from Mickey in November 2020, also mentioned talks between Evans and Disney regarding Star Wars, but the lack of updates leaves this possibility in the realm of speculation. In terms of animation work with Disney, Evans' experience with Pixar for Lightyear was both a creative opportunity and a commercial challenge. The film's underperformance at the box office, losing Disney $106 million according to reports, may affect the likelihood of sequels or new Pixar projects involving the actor. While critics praised his performance, there are no indications of sequels or new Pixar projects involving him. When discussing his approach to voicing Buzz Lightyear, Evans revealed his respect for Tim Allen's original performance.
Well, it's nice to have what Tim did, because not only did he do it so well, and we all love him for what his performance was, but the character actually is. This is the human version of the toys.
He further explained his process.
This is an iconic role, but informed very much in part by what Tim did. Whatever this character is would have to be why Tim is the way he was. So you just kind of take his performance as a blueprint and just move upstream.
Evans also shared insights into the unique challenges of voice acting for animation.
Everyone always says, well, what was it like working with the other actors? You don't work with the other actors. You're in a booth by yourself. I didn't even meet half the actors until last night at the premiere. So it's a very isolating thing, and you really end up focusing extremely on the one string you're playing on, which is your voice.
Beyond Disney-specific projects, Evans' current career trajectory includes several non-Disney films. According to the Cinemaholic, as of March 30th, 2025, his upcoming projects include Honey Don't for Apple TV Plus and Red One for Prime Video, suggesting a focus on expanding his presence across different studios and streaming platforms. Evans' contractual status with Disney provides another piece of the puzzle regarding his future with the company. His past MCU contract, detailed in Cinema Blend from 2018, was for 6 films, extended for Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, but expired post-2019. Reports from 2021, like one from We Got This Covered, suggested a new contract for more projects, but these have not led to confirmed roles. Despite the uncertainties surrounding his professional relationship with Disney, Evans maintains a personal connection to the company and its properties. His visit to Disney World in January 2025, reported by Aliers.net, shows his continued affinity for the Disney experience as a fan, even as his future as a Disney actor remains unclear. When discussing his own inspirations and the figures who encouraged his career path, Evans credited his parents and local theater directors.
I mean, I'm very lucky. My parents were always really supportive. I had a couple good local theater directors. When I was a kid, you know, community theater and kids theater and things like that.
As of May 4th, 2025, Chris Evans' future with Disney remains largely speculative. While he has denied returning as Captain America, the possibility exists given past rumors, but current evidence leans toward no return. Star Wars offers a potential new chapter, with talks reported but no confirmation. Other Disney projects, like Pixar sequels, are not in development for him. His career trajectory, as seen in upcoming non-Disney projects, suggests a focus outside Disney, but his expressed interest in Disney's expansive franchises keep the door open for future collaborations. For fans of Evans' work with Disney, whether as Captain America or Buzz Lightyear, the coming months and years will likely bring clarity regarding his next steps with the entertainment giant. Until then, the actor's firm statements about being happily retired from the MCU and his diversification into non-Disney projects suggest a career in transition, one that may or may not include future collaborations with the house that Mickey built. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.